Thanks for listening to That Great Mank Pod. Please do us a massive favour and subscribe to this podcast. And if you can, leave us a review on iTunes. Both are a massive help, enabling us to promote the people and the great causes we champion to a much bigger audience. If you want to get in touch, give us a follow on Twitter at Great Mank Pod and drop us a DM. Cheers.
You're listening to That Great Mank Pod, Greater Manchester's community podcast. Top one, our kid.
We got in touch with regards to something completely separate. Then you rang me. I think you spoke to Antonia first, who's my wife. Yeah, what are you doing speaking to my wife? No, so
everybody speaks to your wife.
We'll put that to one side.
Yeah. To be honest,
rang me up and we had a chat, and I think there's an awful lot to discuss in terms of, and it depends how much you want to talk about, what you don't want to talk about, mate. Completely up to you.
Yeah. So just talk a bit about myself. My name's Reece Douglas. I grew up in Chiltern originally with my mum and my dad, and unfortunately they split up, and from the age of 7 I moved to Stockport, Greater Manchester. Typical upbringing, to be honest. I was going to Bromwell High School, and I was always that kid that the parents would say, that the teacher would say, your kid's got so much potential, but he's always messing about in class, always messing about. And if he only put his head down, he'd have so much potential. And I questioned why that was. And for me, I just found class really boring. There's so many different ways that people learn. And for me, sat there writing in a book just wasn't the way for me. And I often found entertainment to abide time. And that was by winding people up, to be quite honest with you. So,
we'll get on well.
Yeah.
This story sounds very familiar, Reece.
Yeah.
Well, that was me in a nutshell. And to be honest with you, I didn't have that many friends. I had a close-knit circle, but I didn't have that many friends. And I was always good in drama because I just felt that's where I could be myself. And I always loved performing. And my drama teacher turned around and said, you know what, there's an audition here for a school show on BBC called Waterloo Road. I've got a casting director that I'm familiar with, and they want to come in and see you. So they didn't end up just auditioning me. They ended up auditioning the whole class and a few others. And cut a long story short, went through the audition process, and from being a little shit in school, I then started getting paid for it because I landed the role as Dental Kelly on Waterloo Road.
Yeah.
And, from the age of 12 onwards, my life changed. I was on one of the most watched dramas on BBC at the time. No acting experience in the background, so learned on the job, thrown in the deep end, literally.
Wow.
And from the age of 12, I then became a TV actor, and the rest was history. Yeah.
And it was. I mean, I know it's come back because Ryan's in it. Ryan's a good mate of ours, Ryan Clayton, and it's doing well now. But I was not the demographic for it even when it was out the first time. That shows you how old I am. Yeah. But it was massive. It was. It was really huge. A few people who've been in it. Anna Jabati that we spoke about. Yeah. Anna's a mate of mine. So yeah, from 12 years old being told, don't do that. You'll never get anywhere doing that, to here you go. You've now got an agent, and you're doing that and getting paid for it. How did that change or impact your life on a day-to-day basis? Because I'm assuming you were still going to school.
The days that I was going to school was when I wasn't filming, but because of my age, I had to do compulsory education a certain amount of hours a week. So what would often happen was that if I wasn't in certain days on set, I'd have to go in school. And the days that I was in, let's say, till 1 o'clock, it wasn't worth travelling back to obviously go to school. So what I did instead is I had a private tutor that Waterloo Road would provide, and I would have to make up those hours of compulsory education. So when my mum wasn't my chaperone, often I was, by coincidence, constantly working on graphic design, which translates to roller coaster tycoon.
Right.
Telling the tutor how great these theme parks are, and how, my tutor, my teacher's going to be so impressed. So little did she know I was just building a theme park because I absolutely loved it as a computer game until my mum came in and clocked what I was doing and went absolutely mental. But it was a difficult time because, as glamorous as it sounds, often what would happen is I'd go into school and the teacher would say, "Oh, here he is," and that'd be set work. that wasn't relevant to what I was doing in class. The teachers were just throwing me work for the sake of it. So it was never relevant to what the kids were studying. So often I'd get in the classroom and not have a donkey's what's going on.
Yeah.
So they were throwing work at me basically just to make sure I was keeping up with the compulsory hours.
Were you 16? You were there.
I started when I was about 12, and then I left just before I was 18. Yeah.
Right. I mean, overall, I mean, we can get to you leaving because you told me that story if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's common knowledge or not. But overall, up until you left, would you say it was more beneficial than not being involved in that? Is that? I mean, I would say it's probably a big part of who you are now.
Absolutely,
in so many ways.
As a child, you're not really thinking about the big world, are you? You live in a cocoon. You live in a small environment with your family, your friends, and anywhere you do go is an extension of your family or where they're taking you. I never really thought of what I was going to do in my life, and I don't think a lot of kids have it worked out at that age.
No.
But being thrown into a TV show at such a young age, for all I knew, at that time, my life was set. I was an actor. That's it. I never thought of what would happen if I might leave. I never thought that far. I just was loving the process and loving the journey at that time, and I never looked ahead. And I tried to embrace and enjoy every moment of it.
It sounds like the teachers treated it that way as well. It's like, let's just throw this bit of work at him. We don't really need to invest any time or effort in tailoring it to help him. It's, he's already hit the big time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much. And to be honest with you, Damien, like, in all fairness to the teachers, even if they did set me the white work, it wasn't like I was doing it. So I was doing the bare minimum, let's be honest. So, I think it was a bit of a, it worked both ways. It was like, well, what's the point? We know you're not doing it anyway.
Yeah, and listen, I'm sure there was a certain amount of jealousy involved in that as well. So, I mean, from all angles, I mean, I know a big thing is when they're putting out these castings and they're saying no acting experience necessary. In my opinion to that, and the way I run my productions, I don't care if you get experience or not. If you can act in that role and that role is you, great. But I know it doesn't impress other people, certainly within the industry. So you, as a young kid, I'm sure that was kind of flying around, but you would have been oblivious to it because it's day to day as a kid. It's hour to hour as a kid.
It was intense.
Yeah, I bet.
It was intense. It was tiresome, but I never took a moment for granted. My mum was my chaperone, so she made a living out of it. And I think what I really did, I'm grateful for at that age, was because my mum was my chaperone. She looked after me. She kept me grounded. She made sure that I stayed level-headed, and I basically behaved myself. And as I was becoming this child actor, and as I was recognised walking down the street, that she kept me in line, and she made sure that for me to be conscious of how lucky I am, and not to take a moment for granted, and to treat people, to treat people how they treat me. If that's right, treat me, yeah.
No, I think that's a different version of it, but I think that's a better version of it.
Yeah,
is treat people how they treat you.
Well, that's exactly that.
I'm a massive believer in that, mate.
That's what I did, and there's a few stories in that in itself with certain characters on set where they're a bit rude and up themselves. And first day on set, there was a certain person who could do he was doing the voice of a kid show anyway, and I was dead excited. I used to watch it. I said, "Oh, can you do the voice for me?" It's like, I'm not a fucking performing Muppet, mate. And this was the first day I ever had on set. I thought, my mum said, don't let people talk to you like that. So anyway, there was a scene in the head teacher's office and he couldn't get his lines right. So I kept saying his lines for him. Goes, I think I know my fucking line now, mate. And I said, oh, really? I said, you're the professional here, not me. And the whole casting crew just burst out laughing. And do you know what? From that day, he was never rude to me again. We had a great time.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That was a lesson learned then. I thought, do you know what? That sets the standard. Because if you think, if you let people take the piss out of you, they will. But if you stand your own your own 2 feet, then people will think twice before making a fool of you. And because I was a kid, like, what are you going to do? You can't batter me. So
yeah, it's a little bit different when you're older.
I'm going to have to get on this on the good side of this kid because I'm not going to be able to win him over unless I do.
As you say, we need to put a disclaimer in here. Obviously, if you're in Wetherspoons on Deansgate and you've had a few and this happens, we're not recommending by any stretch that you do this.
Yeah, I'll stay away from Wetherspoons in Deansgate.
Kids get a bad rap. I think that, and I was like that when I was that age. I do think kids get a bad rap, but I think mostly they're really switched on, especially now.
Jesus, no, yeah. Well, certainly with the world of
Especially now.
social media and stuff, they're
Oh,
open to so much more information, and it's more than what your friends and your family tell you. It's everything online, and now it's almost like information overload. Got to be conscious of the information and the content they're seeing and being exposed to at a young age.
well, that, I
Plus,
mean,
also how you portray yourself on social media and everything else, because that affects your career now.
Absolutely,
oh God,
absolutely.
yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
people lose jobs from what they've posted on social media. Probably why I ended up leaving Waterloo Road, to be honest with you.
Well, just go into that because I mean, listen, I'm sure we could speak for hours and hours about that in terms of Waterloo Road. It was obviously a massive impact on your life, but in terms of how you left that or how you found out you'd left that, the story that you told me, are you happy to? Because I think that's quite. I think it's massively impactful, actually.
Yeah, definitely. I think what I've noticed now is that the impact and the awareness of mental health and how decisions do impact people's mental health. And I think back then it wasn't spoken about as much, and things weren't in place to be conscious of how it affects people's lives. And being such a massive production, taking on these kids that have never acted before, myself included. You're changing people's lives essentially, and
Yeah.
you've got people's lives at your fingertips. When I did that show for 5 years, as I said, I was a child. That's all I knew. There was I think it was the end of series 7. The show was going up to Scotland. None of us knew that it was going up to Scotland, right?
I
We
remember
go
that.
on set one day, and the press are outside, and all of us are saying, "What the hell are the press outside for? Saying that the show's going up to Scotland? What's going on?" And then it turns out that the producers come down and say, "Oh yeah, we're sorry to tell you this way, but yeah, we're considering moving the show to Scotland." And then we noticed that the head teacher was, I think he was Scottish. So we started putting two and two together, thinking, "You knew this for ages. Why have you not told us? Why are the press finding out before us? Like, what's the big secret? What's going on?" And I'm not sure it's because they didn't want us to leak the information or the news, but anyway, the press got hold of it, and we found out through them. Now, obviously, the thought of people at home listening to this, or wherever you are, wherever you work, if you're not hybrid, you're not working from home, it's like your workplace turning around to you and saying, "By the way, we're just going to move you up to Scotland." Your whole life's changing.
Yeah,
You start
absolutely.
questioning everything. How's that going to work? What's going on? And I think initially it was a bit of frustration. Like, you're my employer. Why have you not told me this? Why have you not given me time to plan? And a few of us tweeted. I tweeted, "No way, I'm going up to Scotland." The press got hold of that, and then thought, so then they came down and said, "Right, everybody stop posting on social media about the news." Maybe I reaped what I sow. Maybe that's why they chose not to take me. But the way that they told me, I think, was really bad, because I was on my way up to do Casualty at the time. You do about 6 months filming, and then you have a few months off per season. So in those months off, I was fortunate to land a role on Casualty, and I was on my way up to do. I was on my way up to Cardiff, I think it was at the time, to go and film it, and it's a bloody awful train journey. Let me tell you, it was so long.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm there dossing about, and I'm on my phone, and I get a call from art department. A lovely woman called Tina. She's great, and she said, "Hey, Reece," I said, "How you doing?" She said, "Yeah, I expect to hear from you. I've not heard from my agent, not heard from producers. Don't know if I'm going up to Scotland, because we're all left on a cliffhanger. There's a drunk coach coming towards us. We're all put in front of it." And as much as the audience were left on a cliffhanger, so were we, because none of us knew who was going and who wasn't. And anyway, I get a call from art department, and Tina goes, "Can we have a recent photo of you?" I said, "Tina, so what the bloody hell do you want a recent photo of me for? I've not heard about what's going on in Scotland, or if I'm going." And just went silent. I was like, "Tina?" She went, I don't know what to say." I said, "What do you mean you don't know what to say? What are you on about?" She said, "Reece, I can't believe I'm the one telling you this." I said, "What is it?" And she went, "We're 3 weeks into filming your funeral. Denzel's dead." I was like, "Oh, right. Okay. Tell them to go and find their own fucking photo." And put the phone down. Well, I didn't do that to her, obviously, but you can imagine that my reaction made me, my head completely fell off. It was like, what? As far as I knew as a kid, my life had just ended on that phone call.
Wow. I mean,
I'm a gobsmacked. I'm thinking. I mean, one of my stages of life, I was a senior union official. Okay, and in business, you can't be treated like that. You know, if you're being, you know, if say the firm's closing up here and moving to another area, there's a massive length of negotiation, discussing payoffs, redundancies, relocation fees. There's so much behind the scenes goes on before the decision's even made, and that involves consultation with the people it affects. You know, so I'm like gobsmacked that not only can they do that to a person, to a human being, but to somebody who's young. You know, it adds so much more onto it that they can treat you like that in a way. You know, just pick you up, drop you down.
Well, absolutely. You'd like to think it's a responsibility of the employer to go about it the right way and go through the proper channels. But I think what was the hardest for me was that I had to be the bearer of the news. I had to ring my own mum and tell her that. I had to ring my agent and tell him that. And as a kid, you know, trying to articulate that, not only in terms of what my future is going to look like, but how I'm going to deal with life day to day, knowing that I'm now no longer in the show, which, as far as I was concerned, just going back to what we were saying, that was my life. You know, the weight on my shoulders, and yeah, mate, my head fell off, mate. Yeah,
Not just your life. Like you said, your mum had invested hell of a lot into, you know, turning down other opportunities, following other career paths and stuff like that to work with you, you know. So for you to then be responsible for telling your mum that she's pretty much out of work as well.
Yeah.
That's, mate, it's unbelievable that anyone could do that to someone else. Do you know what I mean?
Nothing surprises me in that industry, if I'm on it. I mean, I think I even said this the other day. It's a massively toxic industry in so many ways. Lots and lots of bonuses, but so many negatives, especially in terms of mental health and the people working in it. I mean, you might not want to talk about this, but as a 60, you really don't know what you want to do. You don't know. You've got all sorts of stuff flying through you. You're growing up. You got the hormones. You don't know where you stand on so many things, and then that happens to you. And that could be a really make or break situation, and it would be for a lot of people. It could break them down, and they could never recover from that. Can you remember how? And don't talk about this if it's too much, but can you remember how you felt at that time, as in your worth?
If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I did what any other kid would do. To be honest with you, I truly believe that, which was I always had my parents looking after my money, which I'm very grateful for, and I deeply regret this, but I got in my own head, and it got to a stage where it's like, F this. Do you know what? F this, F everything. And it was like an almost F you attitude. It was like put things up to them. And I took that stance, which I deeply regret now looking back at it. And what I was also caught up in at that time was everything that comes with being on TV, which is a lot of attention from people that probably won't stand next to you at your funeral if you're dead tomorrow. So I had a lot of people that I thought were friends. So I'd lost a lot of friends as well, slowly after the show, because they weren't actually my friends. They were people that just wanted to be associated with me because I was off TV. Right. And I spent pretty much all my money wasting it and trying to find other ways of getting satisfaction or joy by, going out, buying tables. Look at me, I'm the big I am. And I found that was the way of pretty much getting through it, masking it. And then I think life actually got harder after that point.
What did you do?
So I had no money left. I got depressed. I got to a point where it was like, these are not my friends. I haven't got the money to impress them anymore. I don't know what I'm doing in my life. Sat here waiting for a phone call off my agents to get me an audition. And I think when the wake-up call finally happened was when I couldn't afford to pay my phone bill. And I was just laying in bed, just sleeping all day. And my stepdad came in my room one day and, said, get out of bed. So where are we going? He said, you're going to have to get a job. I said, you're not an actor anymore. Welcome to the real world. said, where are we going now then? He goes, I've just bought you a fresh shirt. He's ironing it. He said, I want you to start writing a CV. So, CV? What am I going to write? Been on Waterloo Road for 5 years. I said, and where we're going for a job interview, if you sorted one or something? Because I don't care where you get a job. He goes, you need to pay your phone bill and you know to pay your rent like anyone else. So as long as you're bringing money in, I don't care where you get a job. And it's just, at this time I was still massively recognised. I was getting stopped in the street, and thought of me. And, I'm not disrespecting anybody in terms of the job, but the thought of me working in Tesco, scanning someone's shopping, and then them turning around and asking for a picture. Not that I've got anything against anyone that works in Tesco, but the thought of that as a kid who's recognised on TV is so humiliating.
Yeah. Oh, mate, absolutely, yeah.
And I'm not saying that actors don't go through that. We all have to have a part-time job, and I've learned that the hard way, and that goes on to what I'm doing now. But what I felt at that moment was pure humiliation, and the thought of people taking the piss out of me, people taking pictures, going, "What's happened to him? Look at this idiot!" And all of these things were going through my head, and I just felt 10 times worse than it already was. And the shirt's getting
because you've taken it on your shoulders that it was your fault when it isn't. It wasn't your fault. Yeah. It's just written you out of a program, really.
Pretty much.
I mean, a lot of the podcasts we do, Reece, the major thing that causes people problems, second to probably relationships, is transition. So we've been doing a lot of work with veterans. We speak to police officers, speak to people that were in the NHS. So they were in there was a big culture wrapped around them that tells them they're valued, that tells them they're amazing, and tells them, but as soon as they leave, it's like they don't want to know them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're on your own, you're isolated. All that camaraderie's gone.
I think what I learned was that a lot of my depression stemmed from not feeling a purpose. And I feel like that is a massive symptom of depression, not feeling valued, feeling like you've not got a purpose, and feeling on your own. And that certainly was the main driver for me of why I felt the way I did. And I kid you not, I'm stood there. Remember, it's plain as day. I'm stood there just staring at the stairs, like thinking, I can't believe I'm about to go and hand him a CV. And I've not wrote it at this point. He's still ironing the shirt. And anyway, the letterbox goes, look out the window, and it's the postman. And obviously, I'm just doing anything at this point to try and avoid writing a CV. And I go to the letters, and one of them's got my name on it. So I've gone up the stairs, and I'm back on the corridor, and I'm opening the letter. And it was a check off royalties. So when the TV show gets sold to other productions or other countries, the actors get royalties. And I kid you not, it was a check for $5,000. And just the switch of emotion in that moment, it's almost like it's almost like as electric as getting that call to say you've got the job. That's how I felt on Waterloo Road when I found out I got the call to get the job. Felt like the exact same feeling again when that check came through the door, because it was like, oh, it's a relief. It's a time for me to. It's bought me time. That's what it's bought me. It's bought me time.
Yeah. I think that's what money does, mate. I think that's the best thing that money can do is give you time.
Exactly that. And so I did exactly what Denzel would do. I put the check on the ironing board. I said, iron that. So you say, what's this? I said, it's your phone bill. I said, there's the rent for at least 12 months. And it wasn't as funny as it sounds, but I did go back to bed. I didn't go back to sleep. And I sat there questioning, what am I going to do in my life now? Because I never, ever want to be in that position ever again. By relying on a TV show, or being in a position where I'm making myself feel so vulnerable, like I felt in that moment. So that bought me time, and that's when I started my own business. And that, to this day, is what I'm doing now.
So I think that's when I first heard you actually because you were on another podcast, and I was really impressed because I'm not. Albeit I've got lots of podcasts now, and I do listen to them more. But back then, I didn't, and we were just starting off, and I just liked the fact that it just seemed to have a lot of common sense. And without sounding patronising, that's a very rare quality, especially in people that are a little bit younger, and especially in that world which was tech. Because for me, there's nothing that will take the creativity out of a room than getting a load of people involved in tech in it, because it's just this one big, oh, I'm great, oh, I'm better, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and we're amazing. Where it was just, I just like the fact you had I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I just thought, that's without again demeaning it, that's a pretty simple idea.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're using the technology to make it happen, you just come across people sometimes. You think, you know what? I hope I may never see you, may never speak to you, but I hope that really works out. Can you just give us an idea of what you started off doing and
plus having the strength of character to take that $5,000 and do something with it? Because I'm telling you, mate, at your age, I'd have probably got on a plane to Thailand or somewhere and blew the lot. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'd already done that, hadn't I? I'd already blew it. I'd blew it all, buying bottles and going out and buying all these branded clothes and trying to continue to be that character, that person, that famous persona that I'm so grateful that it got hit me in the hard way, because it made me realise it means nothing. But yeah, so 80% of my time on Waterloo Road, I'm sure you guys know, you spend it in the green room, you're waiting around. That's the majority of the time that you're on set. You're waiting around. Once you've done your costume, once you've had your makeup done, you sat in the green room with other actors, nothing about. And I started to notice, this was before Instagram got big, that a lot of my followers were increasing on Twitter, just for people that recognise me on the show. And it got to about 20k. And I remember getting my first DM off a brand, and they said, "Hey, know if Waterloo Road, love your character, we'd love to collaborate with you." I was like, "Collaborate? What the hell are going on about? Collaborate?" So anyway, they said, "We're a clothing brand, and we'd love you to put a picture up on Twitter and tag our clothes in it."
Right.
I'm like, hang on a minute, yeah, I'll do that. Let me have a look.
Yeah, we don't get that, by the way.
Do you not?
No, that's never happened to us. But sorry, carry on.
We just look, none of our clothes will fit them too, so it's no point.
So I remember I went straight on their website and I filtered it most expensive to least.
Yeah.
And I had a field day. But that really set the tone of how I was spending my spare time then, because to be honest with you, I was just DMing loads of brands, you name it. Flying drones I had getting posted to my house. I had Canada Goose coats worth $6,000. And I spent all my spare time basically speaking to brands and negotiating products to get sent on Twitter.
Yeah, I did.
I was having an absolute ball. And I reflected back on that when I was sat there, out of Waterloo Road, thinking I had something there, because what I'd noticed was that there was so much demand for brands. There was never a second question of not wanting to do it. They were throwing clothes at me and they were thanking me for asking them for it.
Yeah.
So there was clearly a demand in the market, but I'd noticed that they were all making a fundamental mistake, because all of my followers on Twitter, 80% of them were female. So for me, I was like, hang on, you've got all of these male products and you're asking me to post it to a female audience. First rule in marketing is get your target market right. So I thought, right, well, it's deceiving for me to continue doing this. It's not right for me to continue exploiting brands, knowing that they're not going to get anything out of it. But what this did teach me, there was a demand in the market. So I'm not going to go back to all them brands and go, oh, by the way, I've asked you for loads of products and I know it's not going to go anywhere because they're all female.
Yeah, that's the second rule of marketing, mate.
Yeah. Not going to do that. So what I did do is I started to have conversations with smaller brands, and I said, look, I've got loads of followers. Lots of my celebrity friends have. I want to promote your products on social media, but I want to do it the right way. This isn't about millions of followers. This isn't about vanity metrics of, you're saying you've got your clothes on the back of someone. I want to make sure that these celebrities have got, at first, the right audience. So just really top level stuff. If it's a female brand, let's make sure the majority of the audience are female.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, just to go back a step, it was a vanity metric for a lot of brands just to say that they've got the products on the back of a celebrity, which if it was to go through their agent would have cost thousands. And because it was through me and the celebrities like the products, and before they really knew what influencer marketing was and were getting a grasp of it, they were all open to doing it. But the problem that I had was that there was no retention with the brands that I was working with, because once you've got the photo of the celebrity on, that's it, it's done really.
Yeah.
A lot of the celebrities that I'd noticed as well, they weren't content creators. They built the followers because of the TV show they won. So they weren't nurturing their audience. They weren't building their followers. These are people that come to them because they'd like them off the show they were on. So a lot of the content they were posting was poor. It wasn't great quality. And a lot of the time, the audience weren't really expecting to hear about what the celebrity was wearing or where they were eating. It was more about what show they're going to be on. So what I did was I started to notice on social media that there was a thing called micro-influencers, and these were people that had anything from 5,000 to 100,000 followers that weren't necessarily celebrities, but they were people that had built a cult-like following around something they were actively passionate and frequently talking about, whether that's fitness, fashion, or food. And with the brands that I were working with, mainly e-commerce at the time, I started to collaborate with 10 to 50 micro-influencers. And because these people were genuinely interested in what this person was wearing, the results were 10, 50 times. And I remember working with a jewelry brand, and we put it on some micro-influencers, and their Instagram revenue went up by 1,500%. Manchester Evening News wrote an article on it and said, he's a dab hand, Reece Douglas, who's on Waterloo Road, dab hand at influencer marketing, which brought even more brands on board for me.
Yeah, and more awareness for other people to do the same thing. That's the double-edged sword, isn't it, with anything like that?
But where the tech comes in was that me having a conversation with my friend about sticking a coat or a coat on or whatever was an easy conversation to have and to go and reach millions of followers. Micro-influencers meant that they've got half the amount, quarter of the amount, 10th of the amount of followers that a celebrity does. So I need to go and have a conversation with 10 times as many people, 50 times as many people to get that same reach. So I'd noticed that it became a logistical problem. Most of my time wasn't doing what I was enjoying, which was, speaking to brands and getting the products and the people. It was actually a lot of admin. Do you like this product? Where do I ship it to? Have you received it? Have you posted yet? Right, you've posted. Now I'm going to have to look at that post and look at the impact it's had on the followers in terms of likes, comments, click-throughs if you're doing a promo code and all that nonsense. And that's why I thought, why is this so difficult? I can't scale this business now. Anyway, I bumped into this company called Startup Factory, and they do exactly what they say in the tin. They help founders like myself who are not necessarily tech savvy, but have got a potentially highly scalable business solution. So I had an early conversation with them. I showed them my case studies, and they said, "This is great, but you're just too early. Come back in a year." So I did more and more work with different brands until I went back to them and said, "Look, how many campaigns do you want me to do? How many successful jobs do you want me to do? I really want to find a solution here. I can't scale." And they said, "Look, you made it impossible for us to ignore you now, basically." They said, "But yeah, we typically will take a percentage of equity of your company and we'll build your product for you." He says, "But the problem we've got is that your revenue are nowhere near the figures to make the equity in your company valuable for us to take." I was doing less than 10 grand worth of revenue. So, 10, 15% of that meant nothing to them.
No.
So if we're going to build you an 130 grand product, for 15% equity, it means nothing. You need to go and break a sweat. We need to show, you need to do something that shows that you're equally taking as amount of risk as we are, giving you the resources and team to build this tech out. I couldn't go and do a family and friends round like, some people have the privilege of doing. I didn't have friends or family that had a spare 50 grand, 100 grand to throw at me and say, let's throw it at a wall and see if it sticks for you. Plus, I was still a kid.
How old were you at this time?
I was 17. No, I was, when I started to talk about the tech, I was about 24.
Right, yeah.
So still preferably young, and there was a massive trust issue there. Like, what am I doing throwing money at this kid who's never built a tech, does know nothing about it? So a lot of trust issues there, and I never had the conversations with people that would give me the money in the first place. But what did happen was COVID, and where everything kind of stopped for a lot of people. a lot of people sat there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for, no one's really wanting to spend money. No one knows which way the world's going to go. Startup Factory obviously slowed down because, a lot of their businesses were impacted by COVID, which meant they had more time on their hands. And then they put me in touch with the finance director, and the bounce back loan came about.
Right, yeah.
I'd switched bank at the time because I was with Santander and they were offering the bounce back loan. I switched to Monzo, which was like a modern digital banking, and they weren't offering the bounce back loan. So I thought, I've absolutely sodded my chances here. I've got no chance. So finance director said, well, I'm sure there's something we can do. And they put me in touch with GC Business Finance based in Manchester. And cut a long story short, the government allocated them 10 million quid. Said, we're allocating you this budget specifically for businesses that may not be eligible for the normal channels for a bounce back loan. So I went through a vigorous process of that finance director doing forecasts and everything else not. But in the end, I managed to get the 50 grand, and I used that 50 grand to work with Startup Factory to basically show that I'm equaling it as much as they are. And an opportunity that probably never come about again. I just through pure willpower and being at the cutting edge of what opportunity can I possibly have at this stage. They said, brilliant, let's work together.
Yeah, putting yourself out there, mate. I mean, it's not. I say this all the time. Things don't come to you. Well, they do. I mean, that's a lie. Occasionally, things will land in your lap and like that check, even though you'd work for it. But most of the time, you got to get up off your ass. And I don't want to sound like some old Tory here because I'm not. But you got to get up off your ass and you go out there and you've got to put yourself about and you've got to show. Even now with what I'm doing, I have to show what I can do it, and then say, now I want to do more. And then people take a view on it. But it's very difficult when you're young. I mean, the trust issues, especially so, albeit, I mean, in tech, age-wise, it's probably the best industry to be in if you want people to kind of put age to one side a little bit, because there's a lot of young people getting into it. But a lot of it boils down to just that get up off your ass, hard work ethic, which you probably started working on Waterloo Road, that, you're going to work at a young age, getting paid for it, knowing you've got to put the hours in, whether you're pissing around sometimes or not. So I'm sure that was that kind of help. But yeah, I mean, listen,
it's not just that.
Not giving anything.
It's the phrase that's thrown about too much now, which is resilience. And, going right back to your story, Reece, not learning in school, all that sort of stuff. I can relate to that 100%. Paul can relate to that 100%. We don't do things the normal way. We're not sheep. We're not them kind of people, and sometimes it's people telling you that you can't do something that actually gives me, and I know Paul, energy.
You know what? You bang on there, because there was a time in between where there was a time that I think it was 2000 and I can't remember what year it was now, but there was a time where in between starting the agency and leaving Waterloo Road, where I remember, my stepdad thought, well, if you're going to make me get a job, I need to do a job in something I at least enjoy. I'm not spending the rest of my life doing a job that I hate. Life's too short. And I always knew I could be academic if I wanted to. And my ex-partner at the time, her dad was a lawyer, and he said, why don't you get into insolvency? God knows why he said that. But I chose to sit at home and study the book for a whole year and got a qualification in it to prove to my parents that I could be academic if I put my head down. And the only reason I got in the interview room, amongst other people that had years of experience in that industry, is because his daughter watched me on TV. And he said, is this a prank? He goes, first of all, what are you doing in my interview room? And second of all, how have you got this qualification? Because you've got no experience. So because I've sat at home and I've studied for it, and I've got the qualification. So I said, can't really not give me the job now, can you? And he did. And I did it for about 6 months. And we had a very honest conversation with each other. And he said, you hate this, don't you? I said, it's bloody awful. I absolutely hate it. And I left. And I helped him with his marketing ever since. And then, I met up with him a few months ago just to have a catch up with him, which was lovely. But I think in those situations, what I've learned is that a lot of people can play the victim and go, life's not worked out the way I wanted it to work out. I'm going to put my finger up at the world and I'm going to sit on my arse. I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to blame the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Or you can take the other route where you can learn from those failures, which will build resilience to go and give you that fighting spirit to go and find something you're truly passionate about. And I think that there's a really weird space in between where you don't really know what you want to do, but you're making step forward, you're getting yourself out of bed and you're taking action to go and find it. And I promise you now, for anyone that's listening, in that if you've got a slight idea of what you want to do, you don't have to get it all figured out to go and do it. Just make the first step, because once you do actually start to find even the smallest bit of success in something that you're passionate about or interested in, the feeling that you get is uncomparable. You know, even the small little wins for something that you're passionate about doing.
Yeah, because you've got purpose then, rather than just
That's
turning
exactly
up for the
what
job.
goes back to at the start. When you find purpose, it completely changed my mindset, my mental health and everything else that came with it.
I mean, a big strength and a big driver for me is always, if I actually give up, or I've failed loads of times, mate. It's just natural, especially within the charity sector, and trying to continuously get grants, continuously keep projects going and all that sort of stuff. So, you don't always get the grants, you don't always get the thing.
You don't.
But I know there's too many people out there that don't like me, that actually take joy from me failing. So that's one of the main drivers for me to keep going.
I'm one of them.
It's so toxic like that. And I think now what I've kind of flipped the mindset for me now, which is you can either use failure to, as I said, sit you down and blame the world, or for what one of my principles now is I want to fail as quickly as I possibly can. Failure is where my growth moments are. Failures are where I learn what I've done wrong and learn from that to not do that again, to make sure that I'm going in the right direction. I don't think success is a measure of all of the things that you've done right. I actually think it's a measure of how quick you've got things wrong, learned from them and innovated and pushed forward.
You don't learn from success.
Exactly.
It's once you're succeeding, and like we said earlier, a lot of it is luck. I know plenty of people that are doing really well and it's pure luck, but they think they've got that resilience, they haven't. What I'd like to see is if they hit a challenge or something happened to like you did, or that's happened to me and Paul loads of times, for them to then pick themselves up and go for it again. That's when I'd be proud of them. That's when, to me, that person's got character. Do you know what I mean?
I used to work with an investor who would only put money into people and companies if they'd taken at least one company into liquidation. And at the time, I was like early 20s, and it was like, working my arse off. And it was, all greed is good, Gordon Gekko, Wall Street. It was all about that. We were flying, and I could never get my head around it. So what do you mean? So they failed. Why you only put money into people that fail? And it was like, no. Said, if you've taken a business, so the pitfalls and you've experienced the pitfalls. Listen, if you're working with someone who's just got a massive success, amazing. He said, but generally, people who've been through that situation, don't want. I mean, I've done it. I mean, I've had to take companies into liquidation. And you say you went into that industry. It's a horrible, horrible place to be for most people when you realise to fail is not a bad thing, as long as you learn from that something. Exactly. and take it forward, which is what you just said.
It's like when watching, I think it's gone a bit commercial now, but when Ant Middleton was on, SES, I felt it was a bit more real and realistic. And, they're looking for people that are not necessarily the most ideal vision of an SES soldier who's got the biggest muscles, and all that type. It's like, who can take the most shit? Who can go through the most grueling processes and still stand there and say, I'm a soldier? And it's those type of people that ultimately, pass the course.
Well, and also, go through all that, but can still make decisions. Yeah. That's the thing. When you're going through a really bad time, and we've all been there, and you still, life is still life, and you still got to make decisions, especially if you've got businesses or you've got the charity or whatever. You can't just, well, you can, but to stick your head in under the sheets and just go, I'm not going to. You can't. You've got to still make those decisions.
I did it for a long time. Sorry to interrupt. I did put my head under the quilt for a long time. I didn't want to face it. I didn't. But going through that process and that journey, it has taught me now that it's those difficult times that you've got to get up, you've got to show face, you've got to be present. And those are the moments where you grow the most. And, my partner says to me now, she goes, you're very, what's the word that she uses? She says, she says it all the time now, because she's a woman that's very conscious of her work, what people might think of her, and if she made the right decision. And she's very worried about all of those things. And she goes, you're very self-assertive, aren't you? I think that's the right word she used. I said, I don't spend time worrying about shit I can't control.
My motto, mate.
I don't spend time worrying about what someone might think of me. As long as I believe that I've made the right and ethical decision now, I only want to worry about shit I'm in control of, because the shit I'm not in control of, I can't, I'm not in control of it. So what's the point in me wasting time and energy on stuff that I can't control? So that's why I put all my time and effort into what's here and what's now. And if I do that right every single day, then it'll probably make those worries of things that I'm not in control of less worrying, because I won't be in that situation, of those vulnerable situations, if that makes sense.
Mate, we say that all the time. You can only control what you can control.
Exactly.
And, I couldn't give a toss. I said this to you in the car, I couldn't give a toss what anyone thinks about me. From a creative and a professional point of view, the only people that I really care about are the people that I work with on a particular project, because you want it to be the best it can be. But if someone comes up with an opinion, that's all it is. It's an opinion. Exactly. Don't care. You do it.
This concept, I've had this conversation several times this week, and I'm not going to go. Paul pulls me up when I start going into the spirituality thing, because it means a lot to me. But things happen, and my friend asked me to go on his radio show, and it's all about paganism and druidry and stuff like that. And he actually went away. He said, just hang on, I'll give you a copy of my book. And he's wrote a new book called Slithers of Light or something. It's about a concept that he calls wounded healers. And it's about people who've been through terrible trauma that then utilize that energy, utilize that experience to then heal others. So exactly what, and going back to what Paul said earlier about every tech person being a guru, and I only sleep 2 hours a night and work hard and all this nonsense. I'd rather you were out there as the guru, Reece. Do you know what I mean? Because you've got more to offer, because you've been through that low, because you've been through that situation.
Yeah.
And you've got more to share, mate. You've got far more to share, and you're credible. Do you know what I mean? These people think they're credible, but they're only credible to shallow people in a way.
Well, listen, mate, just to jump in there, just because I wanted to go back to what we said before, that I think that's massively relevant to the conversation that we had, Reece, with regards to the post that you'd put on LinkedIn. And I told my opinions of LinkedIn. They're not massively favourable, but you said you got an amazing response to that. And I know people are using it. There's some really good people using it. But can you, if you want to, can you kind of give us an idea of what the post, even the post is there, the post that you put out, why you put it out, and what response you did get, and how that's helped you? Because it's that for me, it's all about, when you're struggling, asking for help. Wherever, I don't care where you do it, how you do it, as long as you do it. And in that case, for you, certainly from the Snatch conversation that we had, it seemed really positive.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about the pressure coming out of Waterloo Road, built the tech product, and it all sounds singing and dancing. But after the tech product was built, I lost I didn't physically lose that. I split up with my partner at the time. My granddad had died. My grandma was ill. I had to call the ambulance, thought she was going to die. I'd lost my dog. And then I found out my auntie got breast cancer. She had to have her breast off, so I'm stood in hospital with her. All of these things happened in the space of 2 months. And then I moved to the Wirral, where I am now. And my life crashed down again. Felt everything that I knew around me as an element of support, because building a business isn't easy. You do go through daily troubles, as we talk about. So that support mechanism, that system I had as a support, had gone. And I had another breakdown. And this is recent. This was about 4 months ago now. And the biggest regret I have was not going to my investors, not going to Start Factory and telling them I'm not doing well.
Mm.
And I guess that is, probably a lot of people can relate that when you are in that headspace, you don't do the right things, you don't think the right way. And I did exactly what I did at the start, which is I shut the door and I laid in bed. I didn't want to speak to anybody. And that was one of the biggest regrets I ever had. And, last month I had to pick myself up. I have to go back to the Start Factory. I said, I'm not giving up. You've given me money. You've given me time. My parents have invested in me. I can't let this die. I can't. And I took some time out. I went abroad to go and live with a second family in Tenerife, where I had a little holiday there. Got my head straight, came back, switched myself back on. It's like, right, I'm going 110%. Now, when you do things like that, when you've got so much responsibility of running a business, of people that have invested the time in you, trust is built in droplets but lost in buckets.
100%, yeah.
And I lost that bucket, and I lost credibility, and I deeply regret that. I still feel that now, and I'm to this day still trying to build that trust back with my clients, with the Startup Factory, and I deeply regret it. And so what I've chose to do, and I feel the best way to do it now, is to build in public. That means that everything that I'm going through, I post on LinkedIn, so people can see my journey, can see my daily struggles. At the end of the day, people buy from people. So if anybody ever questions if I'm credible or not, or what my business is about, go on LinkedIn, go and see it for yourself. And I feel that for me now is the best way that I can not only market myself, but also be completely transparent about what's going on in my daily life, what social plug aims to achieve in the near future, and what we're currently doing day to day in the business. And I felt that really has paid off, because I think humility and vulnerability does win, because it's such an easy way on social media to show your highlight reel, you show reel. It's always your best sides. No one ever talks about, the shit that you're going through and how you feel day to day. So I feel if I'm to do the opposite and go against the grain and be true to how I currently feel and what my daily challenges are, then I'm not really bothered about the people that will try and discredit me, which I've not even had yet. Probably will come over time, but as long as I'm true to myself and I'm honest and upfront, nobody can ever doubt my credibility, because it's there for you to see.
So brave. And then I know Paul's been through a similar thing. I've been through a similar thing, where everything collapsed around me. I mean, everything. Phone got cut off, relationship broke down, everything. And I just planned to walk up to the Pennines and never come back. But on that journey, walking in the middle of the night, I turned a corner and there was a man coming the other way with his dog in the middle of nowhere. He looked up and said, "Beautiful, isn't it?" And I got in my head, "Life." And I looked at him and went, "Certainly is, isn't it?" And after that, everything just fell away. And one thing that I said to the gods, whatever you believe in, I said, I'll always speak my truth. Now, I found since doing that, my life has changed in amazing ways. You think that you've got to portray this persona of being somebody who's confident, successful, and all that. I've coached high-risk prisoners, I've worked with the homeless, I've done some fantastic stuff. Paul's been an incredible support, best mate and everything. We've only known each other 3 or 4 years, but he's my brother, and it's through speaking your truth. I
couldn't agree more. And it's you say that you speak about spiritual things. I grew up a Christian. I never really went to church. I didn't really believe in God, didn't know what God was, never really read the Bible. But I think often at the people's toughest times, they do end up going or seeking some form of love or hope. And I read a bit of the Bible one day, and I'm reading it as a story rather than I want to believe in God and I want to learn everything about it. I'm just reading it as a story like I'd read any other book. And I remember reading a certain chapter that said, something about if you'll know I'm there if you see a rainbow. And I remember going on a run, because I use running now to keep myself mentally stable at the most challenging times, and it was pissing it down with rain and I was really upset. And I just remember looking up and there was a little rainbow in the sky and it made me cry. I Like, Jesus Christ, it really spoke to me, and I thought maybe that's just a coincidence, but it's happened twice in the shittest times. And I've looked back to go and take a picture, and it was gone in that moment. And I've noticed that I think just opening my mind without going into that spiritual side of things, and there's not enough for me to speak on or lecture or give, any advice on. But what I am starting to definitely be aware of is that if you are an open and kind person, that you're open-minded to doing things that you probably wouldn't usually do in benefit of other people, being truthful and honest, and asking for things, things come to you. And I've noticed that right now, this is happening through my life, that being more open, being a bit more spiritual, going and doing things I wouldn't usually do, going right in my wrongs that I didn't really need to go and do. It's paying off in dividends in more ways than I can even explain to you on this. Yeah. And it is blowing my mind. And
it's like that $5,000 check, mate. I say to people, I'm a Christian, I'm a Gnostic, I'm a Druid, lots of stuff. I've been involved in it. You'll always get what you need, not what you want. And that's where, I've had loads of those moments where I have been on my ass. And, when I say I'm skint, I mean, I've got nothing in the bank. Not $5,000 hidden away or anything. I don't mean you, mate. I mean, just generally. And someone's appeared from somewhere totally left field.
Mate, I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. I can't tell you how many times it happened to me. It happened 3 weeks ago. Rebuilding Social Plug, that's always been my pay packet. It's always been a way to run the business. And I'm sat there with my girlfriend. She's in the apartment, she's got a steady job and stuff, and she's making all these Christmas plans. And I'm sat there thinking, I cannot even think about plans because I can't afford them. I don't even know I'm going to be able to gift my parents to tell them how grateful I am. And I swear to God, when she left the apartment, I'm sat on the couch and I'm worrying and I'm panicking. And I'm thinking, right, I need to get myself in shape. I need to go and have conversations. I need to get another brand on board. And I swear to God, in that moment, I got an email off a guy that's interested in Social Plug. I had the conversation with him the next day, my account. Mm-hmm. I was just like, that is mind-blowing. And I said, that's just one instance. I remember going to the car boot and I said about running, right? It's funny you say that, Damien, about it's not what you want, it's what you need. And, I'm talking about how running gets me fit, gets me into shape. And I'm watching a guy in a minute on YouTube called the Hardy Skeezer. He's running the entire length of Africa, absolute madman. And he's doing it every single day and he's halfway now. And I remember looking at the shoes and they're called Hoka. The brand's called Hoka. I said, I'd love a pair of them. They'd be great for my running because I'm wearing some shoes that I bought my friend got me from Cheetah Mill. Like,
they called Toka,
right? Some Adipas or something like that. Right? I need some decent shoes to run in, and it's always played a massive factor of my mental health being able to run. And I swear to God, got out the car just by chance. There's a little stall. I said, "Come on, let's have a little nosy." And we pulled over, and as we pulled over, I just stared at this thing. And I just went, I cannot believe my eyes. She went, is that those Hoka shoes that you've been looking for? I went straight to them. They were exactly my size for £7. They were £130 pair of shoes. They were the exact same colour I was looking at on my website history from the night before. I pulled up my phone and said, look at my history. I said, there's that exact pair of shoes. And they're right there for £7. They're my size. And it's moments like that.
I think you two have had a chat before this podcast.
Well, listen, it's all about what you open your mind to, right? And I'm not here to summarize or anything. I'm just talking about my journey. And for me, there's a bit too many instances that are happening now, and I'm not complaining. But what is most important is to continue on that track, because the second you take it for granted, it'll stop.
100%, man. I mean, listen, I said to you in the conversation the other day, in fact, as I was trailing off when I was saying, oh, Damien will be there, I said, and I don't know why I said it. I said, Damien's very spiritual. And I didn't say it and I think you went, well, spiritual. What do you? But I think you're more like-minded than not. The post that you put out, the thing that always gets me is, and the kind of message that was in my mind when I was speaking to you, and I wanted to. There's lots of stuff people can take from this, but it's the fact that you put that post out, and it doesn't matter what anybody thinks of the platform. It's amazing to see how people respond when somebody does put something out like that makes you think that you are not the only one. And it's almost like they're waiting for permission to say, you know what, I'm not feeling great, or I'm not. And that kind of, it's like ripples, isn't it? You know, and that can make just that one decision to put that post. I mean, I've done it in the past. I put stuff out and then thought, should I put that out? And I think, fuck it. And generally, it's been really positive. And you doing that, mate, first and foremost, it hopefully it's done you some good and some positivity, and know that people genuinely care about you and couldn't really care about the other stuff. It's you as a human being. But it's the fact that it will have helped other people. And that's like a byproduct of that. And that can never be taken for granted, mate.
Yeah, always everything we do with the charity, we put it out there, everything. And I always say to Paul, and we have these discussions because, you know, you've got to tick boxes, you've got to get, you know, review things and stuff like that. But the ones you can't measure are the ones that listen to a podcast, see a film, attend a workshop or an event or something that we've done or read up on it, and it touches them and means something to them. Now, we'll never know that, you know. We'll never, ever know them people that are out there that have actually been helped. Now, sometimes we do because it comes back to you somehow. You know, so, you know, you'll have a conversation and someone will say, oh, I read that, it meant so much. And you think, why didn't you let me know? Yeah. You know what I mean? I could use that as a case study in an application. But it's knowing, me and Paul know that what we're doing is right. Giving people a voice, going to veterans, to homeless people, to young carers, to giving them a voice and asking them what they want. You know, that's missing in a lot of life because, you know, we found it when we went around speaking to homeless people. No, people do stuff to them, but they don't ask them, you know. But what you've sent out there as a post, as like Paul said, and I always see it, you're giving them permission to actually talk to someone. Now, it might not be a reply to you. It might not anything, but they might actually just say to someone, do you know what? I've seen this post that Reece wrote and I'm struggling as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of depression is loneliness. I think they work hand in hand. So it's like...
For me, it's guilt. Guilt is a major one that nobody talks about.
It's guilt. I think a lot of it as well as being as men, it's ego. You know, you want to be a man of the family. You want to be, you know, show that you're a man. And what's the representation of a man that's got strength, who's independent, who can think for himself, who can provide for his family. So to turn around and say, I feel hopeless and don't feel like I want to be anymore, it goes against everything that a man's supposed to be. So it's so hard for them to make that first step and open up. But actually, in fact, what I'm finding is that by doing so builds courage and actually outweighs anything that I think a man is, is by saying, well, this is actually what men go through. You know, this is not the image of man that we see, the perfect image as Instagram shows, but this is generally what a man goes through. And I think being able to actually open up and talk about it shows more strength than anything else in my eyes.
Mate, yeah. I mean, I couldn't sum it up any better. I mean, the one thing I asked you this the other day as well is that, how are you now? How are you feeling at the moment?
I'm feeling a lot better now. I think what's really important is to stay on track. So making sure that, you know, fortunately, right, you know, from the past 3 weeks, I've managed to get a few brands on board that we're working well with. We're doing a great job, staying on track, making sure that I've got a very clear daily tasks that I need to do to feel some sense of achievement each day. Keeping myself fit, brought, you know, it's ironic again, just brought on that brand that I was talking about. We're actually a fitness brand. So he actually wants to work on personally getting me into shape. He's now going to help me, hold me accountable to make sure I'm showing up every day.
Right.
So, you know, it's super ironic, Cal, that brand.
Well, that relationship's more than just financial then, isn't it? It's a proper...
Oh, yeah. I just posted on LinkedIn about that yesterday. But again, ironically, it shows, again, it's almost like, you know, this brand's come on board. It's provided me a bit of security with my income now. I'm going to be able to do a great job for him. But at the same time, it's also helping support me with my mental health because it's fitness related. And it's actually hopefully going to get me in the better shape than I've ever been. I just think it's all really weird and strange. So, you know, I take little wins in that now. I take little successes in my daily tasks that I do. I'm going to be keeping myself fit every day. And I just want to stay on this journey. I think consistency is key for me right now, and I'm really excited to see where it takes me next.
Mate, you deserve it. You deserve it.
It might sound weird, this, mate, but in a way, the things that have happened to you, I'm glad they've happened to you while you're young, because you're way ahead than I was. You know what I mean? It's you've got the right mindset. You're in the right place. You know, like I say, it's a knowing. It's just a knowing that you'll be all right. You know, and whatever challenges you'll face, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
We will do something together, and we should definitely build on this. Because like I said, I'm not interested in building a fucking brand, even with the productions that we're doing and the films and everything else. I'm doing that because I want to do it, and I want to create something of value, financially, but more importantly, to have something that's really known for producing high quality stuff, but more importantly, treats people with respect.
It's all about intent.
In the industry.
Everything's about intent.
Mate, you're right. Life is short. You make the most of it. You treat people like you want to be treated, and don't be a dick. Is pretty much my way of looking at it. But listen, it's been.
Really
I didn't know where this was.
Really enjoyed it.
Well, I didn't know where it was going to go, but I know quite a few people who know you, and your name come up in conversation as it does for various things, and who all say good things, mate.
I've never watched Waterloo Road. I didn't know.
No, I never have, and it wouldn't feel right as a grown man watching Waterloo Road.
You've inspired me today. I've been really ill. This is just very quickly. I've been really ill this year, and I've really struggled to find my mojo and stuff. And this last week, I've really put myself out there to have meetings with people, and every single one of them has inspired me. You know what I mean?
Love that.
And that includes you, mate. So this week has been good for me, because everyone I've met are amazingly good people out there, struggling like hell, right? Everyone I'm speaking to at the moment is struggling, right? But there seems to be a sea change. There's something happening in the universe or whatever, that we're all getting together and we're all meeting each other. And it's
weird how the people who've got the least give the most. It's true though, isn't it? It's the person that's absolutely skint that will give you something. And that's somebody that's got everything in abundance.
Yeah, but that's why we're also skint, because we're always giving it away to other people, mate.
But no, there's lots of good people out there.
What are you doing? Are you sticking it on LinkedIn or?
No, I mean it'll be on all the platforms. I'll put a post on LinkedIn, especially for you.
Oh, thank you, mate.
With this one,
you change your header to Guru.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's another conversation. But yeah, listen, brilliant to speak to you, mate.
Nice one, mate.
If you're ever down in Manning, mate, give us a shout and we'll go and have a drink.
I was there yesterday, and Paul, if you just send Damien my number and drop me WhatsApp, Damien, and then
cool.
Mate, we can meet up for lunch or whatever.
Right, and I meant what I said,
mate. More spiritual, mate.
Yeah, you fucked me off now, won't you? You fucked me off, you two now. Start your own charity. And then be like, it's my own fault because you're going to
start a cult. We're going to start a cult and you're not allowed.
Mank Spiritual. Yeah, you can have that. All right, you take care, you two.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, take care,
Lovely
mate.
meeting you, Reece. Take care.
Thanks for listening to That Great Mank Pod. Please do us a massive favour and subscribe to this podcast. And if you can, leave us a review on iTunes. Both are a massive help, enabling us to promote the people and the great causes we champion to a much bigger audience. If you want to get in touch, give us a follow on Twitter at GreatMankPod and drop us a DM. Cheers.
You're listening to That Great Mank Pod, Greater Manchester's community podcast. Top one.